October 25th, 1996. I decided to visit Port Barton, Palawan, in the Philippines. My mom has extended family in the area and she basically forced me to stay with them, rather than going to the more tourist-developed parts of Palawan, as it was more expensive. I was 21, and thinking it would be great to actually experience how the locals go at it, I said sure. It was the biggest mistake that I could ever make. I was greeted by my mom's cousin, Tito Lito. He is this little Filipino guy that is darker than most. He speaks the bare minimum of English, but always smiling, joking, and thinks every single thing is funny. "Welcome, welcome," he first said as I met him. He then grabbed my bag after getting out of the airport. We went straight to a little boat made of plywood, and it's noticeable how many images of Mary are in the hall. It was a 2-hour boat ride to get to an island where my mom's relative's house was at. My mom's relatives live in an island where electricity only lasts from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The island does not have concrete roads, but houses are made from stacks of concrete blocks they did not bother painting. There are trees everywhere, banana trees, mango trees, and trees that have tentacle-like vines hanging from them. "What tree is this?" I asked Tito Lito. "Balit," he answered with a smile. "Capri lives there," he followed. "Who's Capri?" I asked. "Capri is Mumu," he answered while scratching his head with his limited vocabulary. Sensing that I'm not getting anywhere, I just dropped the subject. November 1st, 1996. All Saints Day. The Filipino respect this day a lot. They visit the graves of loved ones, light them candles, and for some reason, sell colored chicks to children. After the festive attitude that happens at the day, in the night, they light candles in front of each house. Tito Lito explained it in Tagalog, and luckily, I speak the language well enough to understand. They lit the candles as to believe that the souls of the late family members still want to go inside the house. Lighting the candles let the souls know that they're remembered, and they have no need to enter the house. Tito Lito, along with some neighbors, are drinking at a table with some snacks. Fried pig intestines called chicharron bulaklak. They asked me to join them and they boasted about this alcoholic drink that they have. "This is very strong," said one of the neighbors. They served me a shot of lambanog, and it felt like fire burning through my throat. 9 p.m. hit and the electricity was cut, but the drinking table continued under candlelight. I felt the need to take a piss and a neighbor said that he would join me. We walked near the mango trees and let it rip. He said, "Tabi tabi po," and proceeded to spray piss on the tree's base. After returning to the table, I asked them what it's about. "You say excuse," said Tito Lito. "Excuse to Maligno and Mumu. When walk, you no step on them. When they angry, bad thing happen." November 5th, 1996. I woke up to the smell of smoke. In the living room, Tito Lito's daughter, age 11, had her shirt rolled up and her belly exposed while laying in the sofa on the coffee table. A small metal laundry tub has some water in it. On the opposite side, a man was lighting a white candle and then slowly walked towards the little girl. He dropped some candle wax in the water while chanting under his breath. "Inig hingang malayam," he said to the little girl, and dropped a few drops of candle wax to her tummy. Tito Lito and his wife just watched. The man continued dropping candle wax on the water and the girl, until there was enough wax floating on the water. "Naduin de itu," he said towards Tito Lito and his wife. After a brief discussion, The man gave them a bottle of oil and he left. I asked Tito what it's about, and he said, "He's a doctor." Nicole played with duende, and so he comes to cure. Duendes, according to Mom, are the Filipino version of dwarves, and according to them, little children often stumble upon them and they play tricks on the children, making them sick. I'm pretty sure Tito's daughter probably just has a bad stomach flu. November 8th, 1996. Tito's daughter's painful moans wake me up every night for 3 days now. It seems she never got better. I urged Tito to bring her to a doctor, and he said that he'll do it tomorrow. He's been saying tomorrow for 2 days now. It's 11 p.m. and the electricity is out. The warm weather has gotten me sweating like a pig, and so I went out to the backyard and into a hammock. I still couldn't sleep. In the corner of my eye, I saw a faint light in the distance. A small orange light atop a tree. It's glowing in a way that it'll light up pretty bright and then darken, almost as if breathing. I went ahead and I tried to investigate it. I was walking towards it when I stepped on crumpled leaves and I made a crunch sound. The light disappeared. I followed to where it was and I arrived at the bolete tree. There were no signs of anything that may have caused the light. There is one thing that I noticed. The smell of tobacco smoke. November 10th, 1996. Tito ended up not bringing his daughter towards the doctors. She's been quiet ever since that happened, but is now going to school again. On this sunny morning, Tito told me that he thinks we need to visit and pay respect to his and my mom's aunt, Nana Ada, as she is the only living grandaunt I have left. It took about 30 minutes of trekking. We were in a nipa hut, a small hut made of bamboo and straw. In its cute little balcony was an old lady in her 80s chewing a leaf. Nang Pamakin Ko Pinsan. Tito introduced me as his nephew from his cousin, my mom. I took Nana Ada's hand and I placed it on my forehead, a gesture to show respect for the elderly. Tito said something I couldn't understand, but Nana Ada followed by a laugh. She was comparing my white skin compared to Tito's dark then standard skin. I inspected around the hut and I saw a lot of mason jars filled with roots and dirt, like little terrariums. I saw a few jars having salukbang, or the Philippine beetle in it. There are also a lot of dried stuff, herbs and roots in a string, hanging from nails from the walls of Nana Ada's little hut. Tito gestured that we should be on our way and say goodbye. On our way out, Nana was smiling heartily, patting my shoulder, and suddenly patted my groin. I got shocked and I swatted her hand with a loud audible, "What the hell?" and jolted a step back. Nana Ada's smile vanished from her face. It became a serious, angered look. She uttered, "Bastos and bata." Tito then calmed down Nana Ada and escorted her back to inside of the hut. On our way back, Tito told me that I should not have reacted like that as Nana Ada was just teasing me. Back at Tito's house, I was chilling at the hammock when I heard a loud buzzing sound near my neck, and then a sudden sharp, painful sting. I swiped what I thought an insect would be, but it was not there. I scratched where it had bit, and it had this weird, faint heat. Thinking that it was just an insect bite from a tropical country, I didn't pay too much attention to it. November 11th, 1996. I woke up with a ringing in my left ear. It was burning hot and swollen to the touch. It seems that I had an ear infection. Tito's wife gave me green menthol oil and had me rub it down. The cooling sensation helped for a bit, but as the day passed, the worse it got. I could not hear from my left ear anymore, as I feel my ear canals closing in from being swollen. I urged Tito Lito to help me visit the hospital tomorrow. November 12th, 1996. I finally got to the 2-hour boat ride and the 2-hour tricycle ride to the hospital. The doctor said that I have otitis externa, or an infection of the ear canal. I was given anti-inflammatory medicine and I was sent on my way. At this point, I just wanted to go home, but my return ticket is November 30th, and so I'm stuck here for the time being. The pain was excruciating and I basically was bedridden. My fever was sky high and the pain started to radiate towards my entire head, like a migraine that wanted to split my skull. Occasionally, I hear little scrunches inside my ears, followed by a sharp pain. Tito Lito told me that he would call the doctor tomorrow to take a look at it. I didn't know that the doctors do home visits in this remote location, considering that it took us 4 hours to get to the hospital this morning. November 13th, 1996. Tito Lito woke me up and said the doctor is here. It was the man who was dripping candle wax on Tito Lito's daughter. The pain was so much that I didn't protest. At this point, a few candle wax strips were nothing. The man started by smoking a cigarette and blowing it on me. He then lit a small white candle and dropped it on the metal basin with water. About half of the white candle was consumed, and the dropped wax on water just scatters above the surface. He clicked his tongue and brought out another candle, a black candle. He lit it up and chanted a few words. After the first drop of candle on the water, the sharp scrunch inside my ear hit, and I let out an audible grunt of pain. The pain continued on, and I started to sweat a lot. The man was visibly sweating too. A gust of wind blew from outside, and I put the candle out. At this point, the man immediately backed off, panicked. "Nong, giriwa mo," he told me. He then looked at Tito Lito and his wife who was watching the ceremony. He uttered something while being out of breath. He immediately walked out of the house as Tito Lito followed him. A few hours had passed, and I was delirious. The swollen part of my ear was starting to leak pus. Tito Lito's aunt was changing a towel on my forehead under the candlelight, and that was when the sharp pain in my ear intensified, crunching so hard that I shrieked. And then I felt something crawling at the side of my ear, and a loud buzzing sound of an insect flying away. I looked at Tito Lito's wife, who had a terrified look on her face. She immediately made the sign of the cross and ran out of the room. November 14th, 1996. After yesterday's events, I can barely stand up. Tito Lito waked me up and told me that I angered someone dangerous, followed by a weird question. "Do you have money?" And to which I nodded yes. Tito Lito came back 15 minutes after. He had 2 of his friends with him that we were drinking with a few nights before. Tito Lito told me that they will help me up, and the 4 of us will head to Nana Ada's hut to ask for dispensa. They stood me up, one arm over each guy's shoulder, and we slowly did the trek towards the hut of my great aunt. Tito Lito went into the hut first. After about 5 minutes, he came out with Nana Ada. She had a smug look on her wrinkled face. Looking at me, Tito Lito then took me to his shoulder and whispered, "Say you're sorry." "What?" I replied, still whispering. "Say you're sorry so we can make it better," he said while digging his elbow on my ribs. I looked her in the eye as she still looked at me with a smug face. I just blurted out, "Nine, sorry, Po." She just stood there, staring at me while chewing on her leaf. After a while, she turned her back on me and went inside her hut. We just stood there, waiting for something when she went outside again carrying a triangle piece of copper, with the carving of an eye on it tied to a string loop. She extended her hand with the metal thing, and gestured to handing it to me, and for the first time since we got there, I heard her speak. 100 pesos, she said while looking at me. November 16th, 1996. It's been 2 days since I went to visit Nana Ada. I have no more fever nor pain in my ear. In fact, I feel kind of refreshed. Tito Lito told me that I still have to buy liquor for him and his friends for helping out the other day. It looks like it's gonna be another drinking session tonight. There is one thing that changed, however. Under my shirt, I'm now wearing a string necklace with a triangle piece of copper medallion attached to it. I was told that it would help me feel better, and to wear it at all times even while taking a bath. At this point, and ever since I got there, strange things keep happening that I cannot really wrap my head around. Superstition and tradition is so much a part of their daily lives. It's hard for me to put a borderline at which is tradition, which is bullshit, and which is disrespectful. The usual afternoon drinking session came. When everyone is a little bit tipsy, Tito boasted to his friends about my medallion. He then gestured to me to show it to everyone, and so I pulled it out of my shirt and over. Another guy looked at it intently, but carefully did not touch it, and then he said, "That thing good. Do not take off. Good for anticulum," followed by a drunken giggle. There was another guy drinking with us, a burly, overweight dude with his shirt off. He drank a shot of gin and, with his loud voice, said, "I have better. Me bulletproof." He then pointed to his own pendant. At the end of a gold chain was a bronze piece that was darkened with age. It was rounded but not flat, and it has gunk all over it, but there seems to be a carving that used to be in the face of it. Then they all laughed while slapping their knees as the guy declared that he was bulletproof, like they had heard it 1,000,000 times already. He then followed. "Hey Joe, wanna bet? Me bulletproof, 500 pesos. A collective ooh came from the rest of the drinking crowd. A bit more jeering here and there, and then Tito Lito came out with his air rifle. It's usually used to hunt vermin and other small animals. It kills rats and birds, and it would definitely injure someone. Game? 500 pesos, Joe." The guy looked at me as he was waiting for a response to the bet. The other guys edged me on, and I just pretty much nodded. About 4 feet away, Tito Lito aimed at his tummy and shot. The sharp shwap sound came from his rifle, and cheers echoed throughout the night. The guy then scratched his tummy, and everybody else was cheering. He tried to show me where the bullet had hit him. A small dot, similar to a mosquito bite, was in his tummy. Skeptical, I shook my head and giggled. I was a bit tipsy. "Bullet, here, oi ditto," pointed at the dot in his tummy, and I just waved my hand in a "no way" gesture, relaying my disbelief. The crowd now gave a collective boo to him, and his face became a bit more serious as he looked at me. It seems that he was embarrassed. He talked to Tito Lito and he asked for the rifle himself, and he then handed it to me. "You shoot," he told me in a firm voice. The crowd cheered again while waving their glasses of liquor. I was laughing as I thought that he was joking, and I kinda wanted to see how far he would take it. Tito Lito then handed me a single lead bullet to load the air rifle and to cock it, which I did. The guy held the end of the barrel to his face, made 2 steps back and said, "Shoot." I was keeping the rifle steady, but I was laughing at him, waiting for him to sit down and stop. The other guys quieted down, however. "Shoot," he said with a firmer, loud voice. "Okay, stop it, man, I get it," I told him as I lowered the gun. He then angrily grabbed the barrel again, pointed it at his face, and grabbed the elbow of my hand on the trigger and shouted, "You shoot," in an angry voice that had startled me. I accidentally hit the trigger, as he was holding the barrel only a couple inches away from his face. Everybody stood up. The guy grunted and bent over, holding his face. There was utter silence while the guy was grunting and moaning, covering his left eye. He then straightened his body out and was rubbing his left eye. He removed his hand from his eye and it was closed shut, like a forced wink. He then blinked a couple of times, twitching his face. He opened his eye and it was reddish, as if that eye just cried or was irritated. He then raised a bullet between his fingers, as if to show that it came from his eye. Everyone cheered and even whistled to what they saw. I flopped down on my seat, shocked at what had just happened. Tito Lito tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You buy one more case of beer for us." And the drinking continued. I'm posting here because, well, I have some free time on my hands. Normally I don't let others decide my actions for me. It's how I become so gosh dang successful. You don't know about me yet, which of course is by design. If all goes according to plan, which it always has, you won't learn about me until I'm gone. By then, my body count will be in the thousands. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. One of my hobbies is browsing Google Earth. No, it's not some twisted reason. I just genuinely enjoy looking at the different parts of the world from a bird's eye view. Seeing the amazing architecture of various countries, the vast wilderness of Australia and Africa, and the mountain peaks that the vast majority of us will never be able to climb or even see with our own eyes. You ever come across some strange images that you can't really explain? And that's my favorite part of it all. I still remember the image of what appeared to be a body being dragged along a dock, making the whole thing seem like a murder that had just taken place. It turns out it was just a wet dog walking back and forth on the walkway. I knew that already though. Blood doesn't turn that color on the wood. I normally don't give my clients a chance to seek out different opportunities. They usually leave my company by a way of involuntary termination. Today though, I'm feeling a little bit generous, or adventurous or confident, or whatever. I'll explain how this works. I am going to provide some various locations that I have discovered myself. Paired with each location will be a backstory as to why I feel an attachment to that specific area. Within that backstory will be a number of clues, which should lead you to a word that will form a phrase when combined with the other clues. You have 24 hours after I post this to find the first word. Otherwise, my client receives a severance that doesn't involve a buyout package. The hint is, it's a living thing. You guys down to take a trip down to Big Sur? I invited a group of people from work out in Cupertino, California, to head down with me one Saturday to the coastline. The four of us were getting cabin fever from being holed up in our hotel all day and night, so I took it upon myself to show them a place that would make for a killer smoke spot. Look, I've got some weed and I know of a rather secluded spot where we can go and hotbox a cave. Super down, says Blake. I've actually never smoked before. Blake is from Oklahoma, and if you know anything about Oklahoma, you know that weed is not very welcome there. It's cool, man. We'll make sure your first experience is truly unforgettable. Blake and myself, along with my other colleagues, Dylan and Philip, decided to head down to the PCH, where we crank up the tunes in my rental car and speed down the beautiful, scenic freeway that California has to offer. Of course, I never intended on making it to Big Sur. I really just didn't want to drive that far south, and I definitely didn't want to do any hiking. I knew of a little spot along the coast where it was quiet, relatively undisturbed, and had a cave that has truly felt like I only knew of. Should we pick up some boxed wine? Dylan chimes in. Sure. Blake and me respond. What do you think? Philip asks. I don't drink, but if that's what you all want to do, I'll pull over at a gas station on the way there. I told him, and I had no objection to it. Cool, let's do it. As we arrive at the gas station, I give Philip my card and I tell him to fill up my gas tank. It was too easy. Blake and I walk into the gas station to pick up some waters and snacks, while Dylan checks out the alcohol to get some premium and exclusive boxed wine. I grab myself some Swedish fish and a bag of barbecue chips, as well as hot Cheetos and a blue Gatorade for Philip. As we get to the counter, I spotted a beautiful pocket knife on one of those enclosed displays. How much for that knife with the tiger print? I asked the cashier. $19.99. I'll take it. We head back to the car where Philip had just finished filling up, and we resume our trip south. As we arrive near the spot that I'm looking for, I tell them that there will be a little bit of walking. After all, how secluded can something really be if anyone could just drive right up to it? The guys have no objections. Great, well, let's park here, get everything into our backpacks, and start with this trail just below us. Walking the trails along the coastline is truly a wonderful experience, and I encourage you all to do it if you can. Something about the environment being so serene, undisturbed by the hustle and bustle of the civilized world. Birds chirping in the distance, waves crashing against the rocks. It's borderline magical. Moving along about 15 minutes. Okay, maybe it's not that secluded. We end up reaching the shore nearby the cave. Alright, the cave is just a minute or two down the coast. But are you all content with hanging out right here for a bit? I ask. And to no surprise, they had no problem with taking in the sights and sounds of what was before us. We unpacked the wine and snacks, and we sat around talking about pretty much whatever came to our minds. I know you think you know where the story is headed, but no, I don't murder any of my coworkers. After about 30 minutes of lounging, we pack up again and we walk over to the cave. It's a somewhat narrow cave, which opens up just enough after about 20 feet or so, to allow for all of us to sink in there comfortably. We make our way in, take a seat, and I pull out the blunts that we were planning on enjoying. I light them and I pass them around, and I let everybody know just to relax and let it take a hold of you. Blake, Mr. Oklahoma, wasn't inhaling properly. I don't feel anything. Dude, you gotta breathe it in, Dylan tells him. Otherwise you're just puffing smoke and you're wasting good weed. Okay then, I'll try again. Blake hits it and takes a deep breath, and then he immediately coughs up a lung. I told ya. A slow 2 hours pass by. We're laughing, conversing, and just plain hanging out when we realize the time. I didn't want to be out past dark, just because you never really know who's out there. The guys head up towards the trail, and I tell them that I'll meet up with them in about 15 minutes. No problem, they say, and they leave me down in the cave where I joyously spend the last of my high listening to the echoes of the waves, reflecting on the path my life had guided me on. If you told me I was going to stab 2 people to death in that very cave, I would be just as shocked as you were. A couple of guys wandered over to the cave that I was at, likely drawn to the scent of the last blunt we shared just about 40 minutes prior. Hey, you got weed on ya? One of them asked me, yelling in from the mouth of the cave. Nah man, I don't. I was lying, but I didn't want to share with people that I didn't know. After all, I had just spent a pretty penny on my stash. You sure? It smells like you got some leftovers. Look, man, I don't want any trouble, but no, I don't have any more. They start walking into the cave. Bad idea. I pull out the knife that I just bought. The narrow passage through the cave gave me the advantage. I charged at the person in the front, a knife wielded firmly in my fist. He reached for his waist, only to find a blade digging deeper into his throat. He falls immediately, which exposed his friend. His friend has his back turned to me, trying to exit the cave. My knife finds his back, as I press it directly into his spine just below his neck. He falls as well, yelling in pain as his buddy lies completely motionless and silent beneath my feet. I drag them out of the mouth of the cave, and then out to the water. I pull them out to where I can no longer stand, and I release their bodies out into the ocean. My white sweater is ruined. Of course it makes sense to wear a white sweater, right? I end up ditching the bloodstained sweater, weighing it down with some rocks I found to keep it pinned on the ocean floor. Man, were those heavy rocks. As I watched their bodies float away, I felt different, almost reborn. In the water, I was born again. The same water that I could still drown in is where I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Is this where I developed an appetite that could only be quenched by blood? Or does it stop here? I contemplated that question as I dried off on my walk back. Cold from the lack of a sweater and of course being drenched in water. I get back to the car where the others are standing outside, and they immediately ask me what the hell happened. I fell into the water. I tell them. I tried climbing some rocks and that did not go well. I even got a cut on my leg. Yeah, I was about to ask why there's blood on your pants, and they asked. It's not too bad though. It looks much worse than it is. The bleeding's already stopped. So, let's just get back to the hotel so I can clean the wound properly. The drive back up north was started, along with a habit that I would never be able to get rid of.